Develop a fortune state of mind. Time for a date with. Time for a date with. A date with the Dorseys.
Hello, and welcome to yet another date with the Dorseys. I am Dr. Jatan and
Floyd Dorsey.
the fourth. He
That's
just
it.
waits on me to say that name. He doesn't even finish his own name now.
I don't need to.
So welcome, as I just stated, to another date with the Dorseys. If you are joining us for the very first time, shame on you, first off. But I know you'll be back because we always have a hot topic.
It's always hot.
Always hot. And so, if you are looking at, how can you follow us? How can you find out more about us? You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Dim Darn Dorseys. Remember, it's Dim.
Dim with a D, right?
With a D.
Not TH.
No, because you won't find us. So it's Dim Darn Dorseys. And then you can also email us at support@fortuneenterprise.com. And again, we're creative and there's a meaning behind everything. So Fortune is spelled IVTUNE, enterprise.com. So either way, make sure you like, love, download, share, all that good stuff as you come across our episodes. And you can find us on any platform where podcasts are broadcast. So
that's it.
With that being said, let's jump into this hot topic today.
Let's do it.
But we have to, of course, introduce our guest for this episode. So we're talking about finances. And if you know, and you've been following us, you know that we always talk about the 5 F's, which is what we use as our pillars or our principles that build up to what we call a fortune state of mind. And those 5 F's are family,
faith,
finance,
fitness,
and fun.
Okay. She hit the note this time, y'all.
I got a little practice.
Okay. You've been warming up. All right.
And so any of our topics or episodes are one of or a combination of those 5 F's. So today we are focusing mainly on finances, but of course we always dabble into another F. You just never know how it's going to show up. I promise
you, if you listen in, you'll hear us kind of bridge over to another F, perhaps family. I always see that family and finance, but somehow, and we all know why, they tie together. So just tune in. And then faith, of course. At some point, there has to be some additional principles to your money. So just tune in, buckle up, and it's going to be a great ride.
Absolutely. So then, today's topic is financial freedom, secrets, formulas for building wealth. Secret. Did you hear that? Secret. So you got to be listening
to get this.
And we have with us today Sean Washington. I should say the Sean Washington. And and I'm going to, formally introduce him with his bio and then allow him an opportunity to add anything he'd like to add. So Sean is a financial advisor, a field director as well with Northwestern Mutual in Frisco, Texas. He and his 2 children are also residents of Frisco since 2002. He has been in the financial services and insurance field for the past 18 years. He and his team take great pride in creating a personal financial plan for each client. All plans are customized to meet each client's specialized needs. Those financial plans are instrumental in assisting clients in managing risk, building wealth, and living a legacy for those they love. I love the legacy piece, right? Sean is also the president of Golf, which is an acronym, Golf 316 to be specific, which is a faith-based nonprofit organization teaching kids about God through the game of golf. Now, how creative is that? This organization was founded in 2011. It has provided life skills training and financial literacy awareness to over 150 students since its inception. Sean also enjoys traveling and volunteering with his fiance.
Okay. Next time we have to bring her on, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll get that part later. Most definitely.
So welcome, Sean. Anything you want to add to build on to the intro from Dr. Jatan?
I think that really covers, but I will say, I often share why I do what I do, and I think that's kind of the caveat to everything you guys just read. And the main thing is really give an opportunity to live a great life today, but a better life in the future. So often we stay locked in just for today. And we know even from a biblical standpoint, we're not to really think and fret for tomorrow, but we're also called to plan for tomorrow. And so really, I want people to live a great life today, but a better life in the future. And that comes with planning. So that's kind of one thing I would like to add. That's really the why in regards to what I do.
It's awesome. And we said 18 years you've been in it. So like, why did you choose this path? And why did you, and how did you get to where you are? Just as building on the intro.
Right. Well, one of the things years ago when I first came to Dallas, I actually came in 2000 as a brand manager for Progressive Insurance Company. And shortly after that, it was one of those God things. The lady met me in the mall and she said, "Why are you just working? You look like you should be doing your own thing." So it's one of those things where a person saw something in you that you didn't see it yourself. You know you have the skill set, but sometimes things have to be, kind of pulled out of you sometimes. And that's what you did. So when I started my agency with farmers, where I did, homeowners, umbrellas, commercial business, and the financial piece as well, I really started to see there was a lack of education, there was a lack of awareness, really in our communities, but across the spectrum as well. And so that kind of drove me to say, hey, I'm from Shreveport. Frisco was something that, I would aspire to live at. Didn't expect to be on that road, but ended up in that place. And so just by having some awareness and putting some principles and foundations in place, allowed me to, I would say, live a little better life. And so those are the things that begin to really drive me to say I could do it. It's just a matter of being able to share those gifts and talents with others so they can do it as well. So that's what drove me in that space. But what drove me to financial planning as a platform altogether and getting rid of the personal and the property and casualty side was really legacy building. I've seen so many families, think things are in place and life happens and all of a sudden they're starting over. And sometimes it's easier to start over with resources than it is than not. And so legacy building and legacy minded just became a part of my platform. And so that's why I really jumped into it. And that's why I went strictly financial planning back in 2013. So my other practice and started this practice.
Nice.
So I love the way that you mentioned how someone else kind of saw something in you that you should have honed in on, and you actually did it, and now you're shining and rising. With that being said, and the thought of you transitioning into this industry, what would you say are some of your, and I hate to just jump right into this thing, but we're going to do that and we'll just build from there.
Yeah.
But what are some of your core principles for developing a financial fortress for your family? I know you just mentioned legacy, so I thought that was good to kind of jump into that one.
Right. Well, that's a great question and a great place to start because it really builds on the true foundation, I think, of building anything. And so here's one of those secrets, we talked about earlier.
Yes.
So I hope everybody's listening because these are jewels I'm about to drop right quick.
Bring it.
So there are really three solid principles I think that everybody should look at. And I kind of sum it up because I want it to be whether your education level don't matter. I want to make it as plain and as simple as possible. The first thing we should always do is protect things that are most important to us. We have to protect. Anytime someone purchases a home or purchases anything of value, what is the first thing you do?
Insurance.
You protect it.
Yeah.
You don't get a key to that home you purchase, you buy until they get that proof that it's been protected. You don't get a car. You don't drive a $40,000 or a $10,000 or $100,000 car off the lot unless they know that piece is protected. Mm-hmm. So the first thing we have to do is protect things that are most important. And there are an array of things to do that, depending on if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, just everyday solid 9 to 5. There are things we have to protect first. The second jewel is how do we process and where do we put our resources and why? So we have to kind of look at how are we saving and why are we saving there? It has to be strategic. A lot of people say, well, I was told just to save. And that's a good quality to have, but there's probably a better way to save. So we just don't want to kind of sit in those old ways. We want to allow the things that are out there to work for us to truly work for us. So we got to protect what's most important, strategically figure out how and when to save. And then the last thing is we have to make sure we find a way to grow those resources as we're saving. So I line it out like this. I say protect first, save second, and grow third. A lot of people find things, oh man, I hear this, there's a hot stock or something out there, but they have no reserves if that stock doesn't pan out. And so all of a sudden we're scratching and clawing. So a foundation, I think, to any fortress, if you talk to any CEO or anybody that's building, the first thing they say is, I got to protect my investment. Then I want to make sure I have reserves, savings in the right place in case I need to pull from something or life happens. And the last thing is how do I grow this thing? How do I make sure I'm consistently putting things in place to get a return on my investment?
Got it. One thing I didn't hear you say was spend. Is that the fourth? Where's that? And I think some of our listeners may be, looking for that. All right, when do I spend and buy this other stuff that, I need to show people that I'm doing well? Like, when do I spend?
Right. Right. Hey, that's a great question. Because I used to use this word sacrifice in a lot of my meetings, and that would just scare people. Sacrifice. I'm not talking about putting you on the altar, that type of sacrifice.
Right.
I simply mean, and you have to figure out a way to reward yourself, right? Is what you're speaking on. And one thing that I look at in regards to when we really start rewarding ourselves is, what do I have in reserve savings wise? And I look at about a 20%. I look at about a 6-month living expense ratio to really start saying, now I'm able to kind of go out and do big ticket items if I want to. So in other words, if my living expenses are $5,000, comfortably, I would want the majority of my clients to have at least about $30,000 in reserves. Because life happens. We're in a pandemic now, right? Everybody came into 2020 talking about this is probably going to be my best year ever. And life happened, right? We celebrate, we pop the cork, on December 31st, and unfortunately, we're in this situation. And how important it is for clients or individuals, families to have money reserved. So to really start spending money on big ticket items, I would say you need to have at least 3 to 6 months of reserves on hand before you really start spending. Now, the other way that I think is a great way to spend is we want to have a goal. So it may be hard to get $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 immediately, or it may take a year or two depending on where your income is. So let's set small goals to do that. And then once we hit a 3-month goal, say we're going to save $200 a month. Now we got $600 a month. Take the next month and reward yourself with that $200. So you see yourself growing, but at the same time, you don't feel like you just, you're just on Roman noodles every single day now. You still want to go out and have steak dinner, but have a goal first, or whatever that may be. Reach that goal and reward yourself, and keep that cycle going until you kind of get to your end goal.
So in other words, you're saying still stick with those first 3 secrets first.
Yes.
And what I thought of when you called those out was secure, save, and scale. Yeah. So I love the way that you kind of threw out those 3 core principles, but I'm wondering if you would say that those are your top 3 tips as well for building legacy or financial freedom. Is it the same, or, would it be a different process for that?
I think the process is the same, but I think people, depending on where they are, will come in at different levels, right? So some people have their risk control completely already mitigated and in a really, really good place there already. Mm-hmm. So we won't start there with them, obviously. We may, start looking at retirement strategies. They may be an entrepreneur. We may start looking at, how do we grow a step plan for you and max out a step plan for you. So all those things really come on that customized plan I kind of talked about earlier. Yeah. It just depends on what stage you're in. But from a foundation standpoint, we're going to look at all those things. I see myself primarily, I joke about this as a doctor. We may go to the doctor and say, hey, doc, I have an earache. But he's going to look at everything. He's just not going to look at your ear.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you have a good doctor, hopefully you have a good one. Yeah. Just want to be clear.
Yeah. If you got a good one, right, they're still going to look at everything. And so that's kind of how I look at planning. A client may come in and say, hey, this is where I'm at. I want to look at this. But my team and I comprehensively will look at everything just to make sure all those I's are dotted and T's are crossed in other areas before we just assume those things are good, right? And so I just think in building the wealth and making sure we're strategically doing those things, we really do make sure those three things are taken care of first. And then we may move into a retirement allocations, investment portfolios, kind of whatever fits where you are, because you tied these other areas up so nicely for us.
Nice. We hear the word or the phrase financial freedom quite often, and people just throw it out. And I'm not really convinced that everyone is talking about the same thing when they use the words financial freedom. So I want just from you as a financial service professional, and I'm sure you've heard it stated with different clients, like what in general, right? What is it really the core meaning of that, or what is the intent behind those words, financial, freedom?
Freedom. Yeah, and you're so right. It really means different things to different people. But I think the essence and core of that is that I have the ability financially to do what I want to do when I want to, without any recourse, which means I'm in a position now to make decisions financially. Fortunately, good decisions, obviously, but I'm in a place where I've had reserves in place. I've planned properly, so I can really allow myself to live a free, peaceful mindset and make decisions that won't set me back to where I'm back to a check-to-check situation. Or if this happens, all of a sudden I got to kind of reevaluate everything. That means it allows me to make a mistake because I planned so well that if I do get caught in the bind, I position myself back to the 6 months or a year savings to not have to worry. And I think it comes down to peace. When I think about financial freedom, I think about my resources put me at peace. My savings, my job, my retirement, my investments, my annuities, whatever those things are, they put me at peace. So when I think of freedom, I think of the ability to do the things that I want to do, when I want to do them, and how I want to do them, without any recourse.
I love it. Okay. Now you were talking about, being a doctor and really being able to examine people. And I just know personally, as well as, from growing up or just even people that I encounter today, is they have this apprehension about going to the doctor, especially men, right? I'm fine. I'll just take a little, a Robitussin or something like that. And the same thing will transfer over to some financial advisor, right? They may think I have it figured out. Oh no, I'm fine, or I don't want to go see him, or for whatever reason. It may vary from person to person or group to group, because some may think they have it all figured out, or they don't think that anything is wrong for them to, need assistance or a different perspective or point of view. What would you say for those that are facing that challenge to, call someone like yourself up to say, hey, can we have a consultation or a brief meeting just to do a diagnosis or an evaluation?
Right. So can I be extremely frank with that question? Because that's a great question.
Yeah, please.
I think we need to get over ourselves a little bit, swallow that pride, because the good Lord gave people skills and gifts to help us as a community, right? I would love the doctor on myself, but there is no way that I would be well after I did that. And to your point, just like men, I'm good. I just take a little, to your point, a little Robitussin. That's a little old school, by the way.
Right.
Robitussin. That's okay. But really, in all sincerity, kind of just get over yourself. Realize that there, in any field, people, why do I need this? I've heard this. I've heard that. Find somebody you can trust, which is the most important thing. And be transparent, but just kind of understand that this field will really, or going to see an advisor will really allow you to do what you do well, and it will give you peace in areas that you're not sure of, how to save, when to save, where to put money. I mean, most of us didn't go to school or don't have licenses like myself, security license, to understand how the market works. So if I'm not specialized in that, I want to find somebody that is. And so I would tell us to kind of swallow that pride a little bit, just buckle down, bite the bullet, and just find someone you think you can really trust and have that initial conversation. And I guarantee you, if I had a quarter or a penny or whatever for every time I heard someone say, I wish I would have done this sooner, because it's not as painful as people think it is, and it's okay to be transparent, because with anything, typically the more you share, the better a person is able to help. So I would just say, man, bite the bullet and find somebody to trust and that really cares about you, what you're trying to achieve, and put that plan in place.
Yeah. So with that, what are some of the other common roadblocks or sticking points that keep people from reaching out or moving forward or taking that, at least that first step? What are some of the challenges that you've seen to this point?
Right. A lot of them, they automatically think that there's this huge fee that comes with the initial consultation. They've heard so many different things, but it costs this much. And so for your viewers, understand every firm is different. So there are several firms that have no consultation, including me and my team. Our initial talk is free. It doesn't cost anything to come have a conversation with me and my team. It's totally open to say, hey, this is where I'm at, because it's an opportunity for us to evaluate, are we the best fit for you, right?
Mm.
I don't work with every client that comes to my door or gives us a call because I may not be the best fit. I want to be the best fit to help you achieve what it is you're desiring to do. And if I'm not that, I'm not going to waste your time. And I know you're definitely not trying to waste mine. So I don't have a problem with saying, hey, the cost is free to come and have those dialogues. That's one of the big. The second one is, to your point, I can do this by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it by myself. I got a 401k. I got my savings until a pandemic hit. And it's like, oh my God, what do I do? And then the phone just keeps ringing now, right?
Right.
So one would be they think there's this massive cost and ongoing cost when there's not with our team. Secondly, a lot of people just feel they have it, under wraps, and until something happens, and then they realize they don't. And I think the third thing is you'll feel industry-wise that, unfortunately, I'll be transparent, there are some individuals that work in this industry that really don't practice great integrity in working with individuals, unfortunately. And I think that's in any industry. But this one is more unique, obviously, because it's dealing with livelihood. It's dealing with money.
Right.
And so it becomes a lot more painful or hurtful if someone does something, below the belt or with a level of less integrity than they should. So I would say those three things: integrity, trusting the person, lack of that in our industry sometimes, really thinking there's a resource or there's this huge, massive cost, and then really just thinking, hey, I got it figured out, until you have that conversation and you say, oh my God, I really wish we would have had this conversation years ago. I would say those are some of the key roadblocks,
Okay. So you've kind of talked about the challenges that some of your clients or potential clients would have prior to securing you or whomever else as assistance with their finances. But what are some of the roadblocks or distractions they have once they're on board and they're trying to get to that financial freedom point in life? What are some of those challenges you typically see?
I think just pretty much really rearranging your spending habits. That's really the biggest one. If you've been in the mindset of spending, first and saving second, it's kind of hard to start saving first and spending second when you've been a spender for 20, 30, 40 years. So it's really a psychological mind shift that you kind of have to have, and the level of importance will allow you to get there sooner than later, depending on the importance of it for you. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is psychologically changing how I spend money, and willing to save in a way that you don't see the return tomorrow, and understanding that this is a long-term thing sometimes. Now, we do have short-term objectives, but most of the time the things we're looking for, or we're trying to plan strategically for long-term growth. And in a world of everything right now, I gave you $1,000. I ain't got $3,000 a month.
That's it.
No, you really don't. So really, one is helping people change the habit of spending money and their behavior. Second is having patience and understanding it's a process. Nothing really good comes easy and come fast. If it does, it typically doesn't last. So we want to put principles in place that allow you to have a little steadfastness, to understand that, hey, we're doing this with the opportunity of growth long term, and not plant the seed and we look out there the next day, we have this huge, feel or everything's blossom all of a sudden. So I would say those are the main two things, just helping people understand how to change those spending habits. The other thing will really be is how to get rid of debt as well.
Yeah.
Which comes with spending, right? And so most people get in debt because they have just poor spending habits. And they've made up in their mind, I'll just get a little bit here, and I promise myself I'll pay it all back next month.
It's always a good promise behind it. That's
always a good promise. and that promise, we find ways to justify it throughout. So that's where really an advisor like myself and my team can really come in and help people have more of an accountability partner to those things. It's just not you talking to yourself every month saying, I'm going to do it this month. I'm going to do it this month.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden it's 2021, right? And so those are I would say the main three things. Really spending and not really understanding how to eradicate debt the right way. And then the last thing is having patience when you're really trying to put a plan in place. It's not an overnight process. Yeah. Most people don't get in a situation, good or bad, overnight. It's been a process to get you to where you currently are, whether that's a great place or not a good place.
Got it. So great points. And I want to go back to some of the earlier principles you mentioned, Sean, about the three core principles for someone, really having the foundation that's necessary. And I'm recalling the conversation I think we may have had maybe some years back, and you were going over the different products that are necessary to really build the different layers to build yourself up to really have a robust financial security plan. And so, and this is where I really want you to talk about some of the products, from an insurance standpoint. I think you said protection, right? And then, adding additional layers there onto different products that you may have as they build up. Because I think, I know for some people, especially people back home from where I'm from, they're comfortable with a barrier policy and thinking that, I have insurance, I'm good, right? I'm fine. Look, I have this policy out here in case something happens. Or some may just say I have a term policy and I'm good. So what do you mean? Why do I need to see anybody? So I want you to talk a little bit about that and the different layers, and degrees of the different products that are necessary to secure it. I know you customized it, but just wanted you to talk a little bit about that.
Right. Well, to your point, you're so right. And a lot of this just comes with education, back where I'm from Shreveport, we know what we know, right? What we've heard. And so a lot of that really comes with education. But to answer your question, man, it's really, Florida, about mitigating and protecting ourselves the right way. I've met with great clients for the last 17 years. Some have always told me, well, I got it through my job, one, to your point, or I got a burial plot, or I got term, that's all I need. So basically, when we put a plan together, I am looking for not just something that allows you to be buried. I'm looking for those that you love, those that you care about, your philanthropy work, your organizations, things you might want to see continue to thrive despite you not being there anymore. And so a lot of clients that I work with have to be legacy minded. That don't mean we just give kids or our kids all the money and they just blow through it. It means we want to teach them the right way to spend the money too, right? So the products are, there's term insurance, there's permanent insurance, there's flexible, there's universal insurance. All those things have different meanings to why we use them. I'll share my personal kind of layout personally. So I do have term insurance because I have children. And so I want to make sure, heaven forbid, the good Lord brings me home much sooner than I want to go. And they're not out of college or they're not married and they hadn't gotten their first home. I still feel responsible for that, even though I'm not here, right? Because that's the promise that I made them. So I need term to expand for a period of time, and it's a little bit less expensive. So I can have a $2 million policy for $80 a month, right? But that allows me to keep my promise to my family in case I am out of here a little sooner than I want to be. So this is about keeping a promise. So term allow us to do that because we can get a lot for little. But to your other point is, we don't want to ride that for the rest of our lives. How many of us that listen to this podcast personally have been in a place where you've known someone that has life insurance for 20 years and they died 60 or 65 or 70, 75, all of a sudden they have nothing, right? Because they did not get a permanent plan. They just bought term, and that term does what? It expires. because it's called term, which means there's a 5, 10, 15, 20-year term. And if you don't get some type of permanent planning, guys, life can happen within that term, which means you can get an illness. And all of a sudden now you become what? Uninsurable. Now you can't purchase anything in the future when that term ends. Permanent life insurance, whole life insurance is with you until you pass away. So we always would have an opportunity to either build a really good legacy for those we love. We're going to have more than enough to put us away comfortably and bless those that are still here. Family, kids, grandkids, philanthropy work if you're into that. But you have to have a level of term and you should have a level of whole life. Because on the flip side of whole life, that's another way to generate wealth because it grows tax-free. Those resources come out tax-free. It grows tax-free. There's a great way also to offset your retirement structure. Because everything from a retirement standpoint is what? Your 401k is taxable. Your investment portfolios are taxable. So this is the way that we help strategically balance and diversify strategically our retirement allocation for our clients with the form of whole life insurance, yet and still we're protecting their life. That's on the life insurance part. So it's very important to diversify your life insurance based on your current needs because those things are going to change in the future, right? I mean, if you're 40 right now and your kids are getting grown, well, at some point in time, 20 years from now, they're going to be grandkids. And that heart is going to be fluttering so that when you leave, you want to make sure you're able to leave those grandkids something. And so whole life and allows us to protect that piece, where term typically allows us to take care of our kids until they're about 25 or 30 years old.
Nice. Good. And then anything on, I know some will talk about annuities and other IRAs and other ways of saving or using the cash. Or just anything on those other types of vehicles on the next level of your tiering.
Yes, most definitely. So one of the things I do want to throw in there that I think that's extremely important from mitigating and protecting your risk, which is a long-term disability plan. A lot of us have it through our employers, but a lot of times most employers will give you 60%, right? So if I'm used to bringing in, let's say 10 grand a month and I go to 60%, which is $6 grand, well, I'm losing $4K. So I need to make sure I'm able to subsidize some of those dollars that I'm no longer getting because I may be out for 8 months or a year. For all single parent households that have one income, that's extremely important. Because if you're not working, then our income is from 10 grand to 6 grand. And depending on what kind of lifestyle you're living, I don't know many people who can drop 40% of their income and still be A-okay. So that's a very, very important thing as well. But to the other point of retirement dollars and allocations, IRAs, Roth IRAs, Roth is so important for individuals under $118,000, $20,000 right now. That money grows tax-free and comes out tax-free as well. But once you cross a threshold, guys, you lose that opportunity to maximize on those things. So to your point earlier, if you don't go to an advisor, if you're not talking to an advisor, you won't know those things.
Right.
So what's the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA? Well, your traditional IRA, you get to write that off on your taxes in the current year. The Roth IRA, you don't. Because why? You're getting tax-free benefits on the end, so you don't get to write that off. So if I got a client that's at a $300,000 threshold and they need to drop below, $294,000 to go from a 35% tax bracket to a 25% tax bracket, well, we can write her or him a traditional IRA to lower their tax bracket. Now they're saving 7, 8, 9% on their taxes. So those little small gadgets can go a long way.
Yeah.
You have those little small nuances that help you stretch your dollar much further than it probably would go without those little tips. So those are really great for retirement, to subsidize your retirement. For entrepreneurs, you definitely should be looking at Roth IRAs and traditional IRAs. For business owners, they definitely should be looking at STEP, which are employment type benefits that you can maximize in regards to being an owner of a business. So all those tools out there really help you strategically plan, save in the right way, depending on what your goals, visions, and hopes So definitely those things are definitely things we all should be looking at based on our income and how does it help me really maximize growth for when I do look to say, hey, I think I'm going to shut it down. I want to retire at 60, 65 or whatever it may be.
Awesome. Awesome. Guys, you hearing it? Sean Washington.
Straight from the Sean Washington.
Yeah, the Sean Washington.
And I was going to interject and say, we don't want to give them all of the secrets because we need them to come to you and get some professional assistance, right? So tell us how should someone get started working with you and then kind of go right into sharing your information so that they can reach out to you.
Yeah, so the best way to do it is to give me a call. I've been in Frisco, like I said, since 2002. My office actually right here in Frisco. But you can give me a call. My office number is 972-731-4002. And there's 214-564-2705 as well. My email address is Sean, SEAN, Washington @nm.com. That's NancyMary.com. And send me an email. Check out my website. The best thing to do is just give me a call, and we'll find a way to get you on the calendar. And the cool thing about it, obviously we're doing a lot of Zoom calling and go to meetings, so you can do it in the comfort of your home now, in the comfort of your office. It's just a phone call now. And then we can determine, kind of how we go and where we go from there. But it's much easier now than having to really fit it in your schedule, especially if you're married and your husband may be here or there. So just give me a call at either one of those numbers, send me an email, and someone from my team or myself will definitely get back with you as soon as possible.
Awesome. So for those of you listening, understand, I know Sean emphasizes, but I'm going to triple emphasize it. It's a discovery call. This is not your session to jump right into the money and all of that stuff, but it's an opportunity for you all to discuss what the opportunities are, to see if you're a good fit, and he can go from there with assisting you with your financial desires and needs. With that, sure, go ahead.
Can I say one thing? And so to everybody that's listening, feel free to know this. Even when talking to me or someone on my team, everything is also completely confidential. So there is no sharing of your information. I don't care who refers you, if it's a buddy or a friend. Trust and believe that whatever you share with me or my team, it stays within the four walls and the confinement of my office.
Love that.
And so just know that a lot of times I know we feel like, well, he's working with, a good buddy of mine and situations can be different. So have complete peace in knowing that anything that we discuss stays solely within my team.
Awesome. It's almost like your doctor, you have the HIPAA with your doctor. So you certainly have that degree of confidentiality. So just trust it. Yeah. So that's awesome. So with that, again, we appreciate Sean for gracing us with his presence. We're going to jump right into the dose of Dorsey's, and then we will transition over and close it out. So for the dose of Dorsey's, I know often on our podcast, we talked about and have stressed the idea for financially about just creating a plan. And again, we've often shared that we're not the certified financial experts. However, we promise you that we will bring some on, and we often seek out assistance ourselves. But I think one of the first things especially for couples, and for those that are getting new to relationships or want to start or want to build with someone, one of the first things, and I'll give you 6 that you should do, is the first is to sit down and talk about your financial goals and your values, right? Just having an understanding from one another, whomever that you're trying to build with. And you may find that you may vary different or different degrees, but it's also it's always great to at least have a common understanding. The next thing I'd say is remove the emotions from the financial talk. Oftentimes we find ourselves getting too wrapped up emotionally about financials that sometimes it's really difficult to really get past, how much you're making, or how much do you have in savings, or how much do you have in loans and things of that nature. And those conversations are important, especially if you're talking about building with that person. The next thing is come up with a plan, a plan to meet your goals. And then this may be a plan of discussion that you may have just amongst one another. And then from there, it may be a great opportunity to reach out to Sean Washington and his team to help you, help him bring more light and create more of a structure around the plan that you're developing. And with that, with partnering with Sean and team, they can help you develop a system for your finances that will work for you and your partner and your life goals. And then number 5 is having those frequent meetings, both within between your spouse or your partner, or even with yourself, having some time, if you're single, having some time with yourself to look at your finances, but then also have that frequent meeting with your financial advisor. And then last and above all is stay positive and making sure you're being honest with yourself and with your mate and whomever you're building with. And the last thing I'd say, I know I said the last thing, but the very last thing on this dose of Dorsey's is key. And a plan doesn't work unless you work it. So you have to make sure you're staying consistent and persistent with pursuing your goals and working your plan. That's our dose of Dorsey's. I'll pass it to Sean to see if he has any last words before we move over to the closeout, Queen.
No, I think everything you had. One thing that I want to super duper high five you on, man, with the emotional part is that a lot of times we get so caught up in the emotion, and let's just have that good conversation. Let's see if we can be of a resource for you. And if we can, we'd love to work with you. And if not, I promise you we'll find someone that's a super duper, maybe even a better fit, which is hard to believe that ourselves, but it's possible. So with that being said, I thank you guys for allowing me to be here. Please reach out, guys, if you want to have an opportunity to have that introduction conversation. We'll be more than happy to spend that time with you.
Awesome. Closeout Queen, bring us home.
Here she comes. So again, this has been yet another hot topic, another day with the Dorseys, where we talked about financial freedom and we shared some secrets to wealth building. Now, if it's your first time, as you know by now, it will not be your last time. But make sure you do follow us. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dem Darn Dorseys. Again, Dem, DEM, Darn Dorseys. Or you can email us at support@fortuneenterprise.com. And again, Fortune is spelled IVTUNE enterprise.com.
That's it, girl.
That was a mouthful. With that being said, listen, guys, make sure you go listen, download, like, share, love, all that good stuff. Until we meet again the next round. Bye for now.
Bye.
Develop a fortune state of mind. Time for a date with the Dorseys.